Which of those benefits tends to surprise people most when they finally start showing up as themselves at work?
Happiness and joy.
Yeah.
People need people that listen and then do something.
Not about fitting in, it's about claiming your space, standing in your truth, even when it's hard.
We might be subject matter experts on certain things, but by no means do we know everything. We are imperfectly perfect.
What's a good way to figure out who we are? Claude, it is such a pleasure to have you on Transform Your Workplace. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Great to be here.
By the time this releases, your book will be out. It's called Be Yourself at Work, The Groundbreaking Power of Showing Up, Standing Out, and Leading from the Heart. And in the foreword, Gary Vee, who I'm a huge fan of, he talks about how you are the right person to help him build a more human-centered culture at VaynerX. And you made this big career shift. You went from like being in advertising and account executive roles into becoming the company's first chief heart officer. So what gave you the courage to make that leap?
Yeah, thank you. It was a very big pivot already, after spending about 20 years doing something. What gave me the courage is that the only thing I actually cared about was the people. And when I talked to Gary, when we sat down and I said, listen, I'm not interested in advertising anymore. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I only care about the people. I care about the heartbeat of this place. And it was like, I didn't think about it. It just rolled off my tongue. And I knew right then and there that I had made the right decision, and that, trying to get something into your hands, like this was a great career for me for a long time, but I lost the love for it. And I could tell I lost the love because I would be in client meetings talking about campaigns or products. And I was like, I'm just not interested, which, they deserve someone that was interested. So that's when I knew. Now, I always thought I would be a psychotherapist. And I figured out that there were other ways I could be of service. So I didn't go down that route. My mom is one. And so it's always been in me, like to be that unofficial, like player, coach, cheerleader. And so it's just natural. I love people. I believe that everyone is possible of great things, and something I just like sharing.
Chief Heart Officer, that is a very unique job title. What does your day-to-day look like?
Oh man, it can be everything from, I could be stacked with 15-minute meetings where I'm meeting with employees that have either reached out to me or I've reached out to them for a variety of reasons. I could be talking about our core competencies, talent planning, recruiting, what's going on in Singapore, what's going on in India. I could be traveling. I could be talking about like strategic roadmap for 2026. Right now we're budgeting for 2026. So I can be in any kind of meeting. And then I can also be in meetings that are, more serious HR of HR nature, where we got to really get into it. But I do a lot of coaching. My day is spent doing a lot of coaching, I would say, with high performance coaching, which I really enjoy.
You wrote in the book early on that work shouldn't cost you your soul, and that no one should have to choose between belonging and survival. Why do you think so many workplaces still push people to trade that authenticity for conformity?
I think workplaces think that's how you're going to be more successful with the bottom line and your P&L. I think if people just come in, punch in, do the work, and punch out, then no one needs to pay attention to anything else. So I believe workplaces are just asking us to put up masks all day. Don't get too close to us. We don't want to know. We don't want to know about your problems. We don't want to know about your dyslexia or ADHD. Just do the work. And it's archaic. It's just an archaic model. It's not who we are anymore.
Early on in the book, you promise readers that if you just show up and be yourself, it's a complete game changer. And it can make our work dynamic, fulfilling, meaningful. What's the most powerful moment maybe in your own career that you saw that truth play out?
There definitely have been quite a few, but I will go back to my first let's just say, year or so at Vayner. So my day one, we're on a Park Avenue office. We're all sitting on top of each other. No one had their own seat. You were lucky if you got a chair. A lot of people like sat in the elevator shafts or the stairwells. And here I am, day one. I come in and I'm like, wow, the average age has to be about 23 here. And I was almost double that. And I sat down at this table, and this wonderful guy, this guy, I won't say his name. Anyway, these two guys who happened to be together. And I sat in the middle, and they were so wonderful. Hi, what's your name? Oh, what's your name? Oh, and they said, what's your app? What's your favorite app? And I was like, Spotify. Anyway, I ended up feeling so comfortable within this setting that it was very easy for me to share that I was out, that, my partner was a woman. And they came to me, I don't know, 8 months later, and they said, can we start a pride group? And I said, absolutely. That's fantastic. And that, I think, is big, because the pride group is still thriving, and it's awesome, and it's evolved quite a bit. So I think that was a real pivotal moment for me to be like, oh yeah, this is who I am.
I love that. In the chapter, Why Show Up, you say, if we can just catch a glimpse of our potential, we might never settle for anything less. How do leaders, I know this is a big job for leaders, how do we help our people catch a glimpse of their potential?
Yeah, well, we move our ego to the back seat. That's the first thing. Because as leaders, I don't believe it's our job to be the hero of any story at all. I believe we are guides, and we work for them. People don't work for us. And, Gary says that all the time. I say that. So that's the first thing. It's not about us. The other thing is having a yes and mindset. Like, if someone came to me and they're like, I want to be the best I could possibly be. Cool. Okay. Before we got into it, I would I'd find out more about them, what makes them tick, what makes them talk, and whatnot. And what does that even mean? What do you mean you want to be the best that you can be? What does that mean? What does that look like? What is that? If you could tell me what that tastes like, what is it in 5 years? Because I want them to paint the picture. It's not my picture. And so if they can paint the picture, and then the person and I can actually give shape to it, we can figure out some of the strategies. Oh, who should I connect you to? Oh, you want to be an AI expert? You got to go talk to this person. Oh, yeah, you want to move to London? Great. Did you fill out the relocation sheet? Great. Okay, well, let's get you involved in some of the London work. The thing I truly believe that I don't have to have the solutions to everything. That the culture will find that together we will find solutions for people. So when I am with someone, it is literally about them. What can I do for you? In the position I'm in, what can I do for you? And there's a lot I can do. Again, it's not about me. What do you want to create with, what was it? Mary Oliver said something like, what do you want to create with your one unbelievable life? Something like that. The other thing I will say is first and foremost, if someone came to me, I would be so happy, because that means they're taking up space, and they know that they deserve to be their best self, or they deserve at least to go on that journey. And that journey is going to start with a lot of self-awareness on their part. So we are going to go down that road together. Or I'm going to, set them up with a bunch of questions, and maybe set them up with a different coach or something. But really, like, what does that mean to you? What do you want? What does that look like?
Those are probably some of the conversations you love having, right? You were talking about, you do a lot of coaching. This is probably
look at my smile.
Highlight. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Just like I love when someone is really having a hard time and their performance is starting to tank, or their vibe is starting to tank and whatnot. I really enjoy those conversations too, because let's figure out, like, that feeling didn't just happen here. You've had that feeling somewhere before. Where does that come from? And most of the time, if I'm I'm very fortunate that I get to, create and hold space for people. They know it's very safe. There's a lot of psychological safety in what I provide, because I want to hear about them. They don't, I know my story. So, it's actually, it fills me up so much.
You highlight some of the payoffs of showing up as more visibility, connection, energy. and less about burnout and loneliness. Which of those benefits tends to surprise people most when they finally start showing up as themselves at work?
Happiness and joy.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it here. This is fun. I want to come back. Oh, I met my best friends here. Or I met my boyfriend, my girlfriend here. Like, that's what happens. It's work is enjoyable. It's not a slog. Even in those moments where the shit could be hitting the fan, excuse my language, or, we have a pitch and we need to, stay up until 1 a.m. for the next 3 nights. Like, well, that's resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And if the team has formed well with all of the things I talk about, the psychological safety and making sure that people know they matter and they belong, the trust comes. And with trust, you can have a lot of resilience. You can build a lot. I know you have my back and I have your back. That's what that is. Yeah, people are happy. They're like, whoa, I really like it here.
And the opposite is that the risks of like not showing up as your true authentic self is you highlight like reputation hits, team drama, regret. Which of these things like do you see play out the most in organizations when people don't show up as their authentic self?
By the way, they'll bounce. I mean, that's one of the things is that
they'll go find something that where they feel like they belong,
or they'll job skip.
Mm-hmm.
2 years here, a year here, 18 months here, right? Because that will. It has to begin with yourself. You have to know, you have to at least be interested in finding out about what makes you you. And that's something that we put a lot of emphasis on at work. I will say one of the things that you see is people shrink. So someone could come in and we're stoked on them. We looked for them for 6 months. We finally found the right person to come in. They come in as a giant and maybe they lose their voice for a number of reasons and they didn't feel like they could go talk to, their manager. And so they just start to shrink. And I've seen that. And, I've been there too. And shrinking does no one any good. It really does a number on yourself, first and foremost. But then, hey, you're not the person that we hired. We hired you because of your energy and this and the curiosity and that. We didn't hire you because you weren't capable. So that's a big thing that you see is people shrink. They give up. They become shadow.
You describe emotions as allies in awareness, growth, and decision making, and you frame leadership as an emotional path of optimism, bravery, and efficiency. Those are the pillars of emotions. How did you land on those 3 pillars, and what does that look like when a leader is truly cycling through all 3?
Yeah.
And feel free to share if you have examples from your own career or life.
I mean, Gary is one of those people for sure. And I think the top talent at Vayner is. Let me walk you through. So I've always been an optimist. It took me a longer time to become an optimist about myself, but I've certainly been an optimist and always been like a cheerleader for people. No matter even if I was like the captain of a tennis team, I would rather watch them cheerlead than go out there and hit. Right. So I've always been an optimist, but I've always been a very emotional person too. And, through therapy and years of living, I recognize that I don't have to become my emotions, but I can be emotional.
Yeah.
So this situation is making me sad. I'm not a sad human being. And so there's a real difference there. So what I thought of is, okay, let's put these 2 things together because I can't just say I'm an optimist and not tell you that like, no, things do affect me. I mean, I'm not a toxic positivity person. And then I thought, okay, if emotional optimism for Claude means that I have the ability to get myself out of the situation, or I can go get help to get me out of a funk, right? So, gosh, I mean, I've had so many things, but I'll go through the whole gamut and then I'll come back. So, Emotional optimism is really you understanding that you have every right to change up the situation or to change your behavior, and the sun will shine tomorrow. It might not be shining. The sun might not be shining right now. You might be having a terrible experience, but it will get better. The bravery, emotional bravery, is knowing all of that and still taking action. Knowing all of that, knowing that it doesn't feel good right now, but you have to do something. You can't just hope and wish that the situation's going to get better because I think positively. I always say you have to go to the ball. Please don't wait for the ball to come to you. Like go there. And if you take those steps individually, you will find that you cycle through that drama, that heaviness, that girth of emotion a lot faster. Because at some point you're like, oh yeah, I'm not sad. F that. That situation made me sad. Okay, I'm going to talk to my manager tomorrow. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to go talk to Gary. I'm going to go ask for a raise. The efficiency is it just speeds up. So you're not carrying all that weight on your back. And imagine that on a team. You already know me. You know where I'm from. You know my tics, my talks. I already know you. We've been through the trenches together. So when I say something to you and I don't think before I speak and I say something that might have offended you, you know my intention isn't to offend you. And so you could say, ouch, that hurt. Or I could say, oh my God, Brandon, I'm so sorry. I'm tired. I'm so sorry that happened. And we can get through that quicker because we need to, because speed is the name of the game. So that's what it's really about. It's really like this flywheel that's happening once a day, once an hour, 12 times a minute. Like it's just us. And I wanted to codify it because I've been asked this question over and over and over. Like, well, how are you so optimistic? And like, what do you do with that? And, and then I share stories with them. Like, listen, I'm optimistic, but I've certainly fallen on my butt almost, a million times. I've just gotten up 1,000,001 times. So
that's the bravery part, right?
Yeah. And it's like humanizing things and that is what I think needs to happen in the workplace. More humanizing. And so when I say we need to bring humanity into the workplace, that's what I'm talking about. Just being real. Just being like, oh yeah, that hurts when I pinch myself. Not like, oh yeah, that's cool. Pinch myself all day. Right? Like, let's get real. That's what I'm talking about. Let's get real. What's so scary?
I think for so many people, showing up would be a lot easier if we really truly understood who we were. And in the book, you highlight a really good exercise of figuring out like, who are we? Who are we truly based on all of our lived experiences? What's a good way to figure out who we are?
What I call out in the book and something I've done, I'm not a journaler, but I went through kind of my life timeline. Of like, I went back and I was like, oh yeah, who was I at 5? Who was I at 13? Pivotal moments where I remember, living large or starting to shrink. Adolescence, like, oh God, that's such a tough time for many of us. A tough time for me. How did I get through that? Like, what is so who, like, I can't go back to being 5, but I can remember who I was at 5. I can remember being like a real tomboy and really enjoying playing sports and really loving, like, playing with my dad and my brother in the field and catching and stuff like that. That gives me a lot of joy. And at some point, I got small. What was going on for me then? What was going on when I got small? And then I got, then there's a journey. There's peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys. So the timeline is just sitting there for a second and getting a pen and sketching it out. And maybe using 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Like, look at your life that way. Unless there were pivotal moments at 23. Oh, you met the love of your life. Again, the exercise is for you, for no one else. So you want to be as real and truthful with it as you can be. You're not fooling anyone. The exercise is for you. And self-awareness is a lifelong journey. I happened to start on it earlier in my life because I was in a lot of pain. And I didn't understand why I was in so much pain. And so I spent pretty much all of my 20s trying to figure it out. Obviously, some of my 30s too. And then I got to a place where I understand how I operate. I understand a lot of my quirks. And my partner said to me yesterday, she said, how is it that things just don't bother you?
Hmm.
And, what I said to her is like, there are things that bother me, but so many things I have no control over.
Right.
So I don't carry it anymore. I can't make that person write us back. I just can't. Like, and I was one of those people that thought I could back in the day. Like, I know if I spend enough time with you, boyfriend or girlfriend, I know I can heal you. Really, I know I can heal you. I know I have enough love in my heart to heal you. And they're like, I don't want you to heal me.
You're right. Can only
So
focus on yourself.
you can only focus on yourself. You can only change. You can only change the song in your head, which is
Yeah.
really, that's really the subtext of this book.
Yeah.
Only you can change the song in your head.
You kind of on a similar note, you talk about like stopping the swirl of this workplace anxiety, probably people who want to be able to project or control other people. But
Yeah.
you talk about some practices like box breathing, journaling, even going for a walk. Why do you think some of these things, these practices that we can just easily put throughout our day to reduce anxiety, why do you think they work? And what's your favorite tool?
My favorite tool, and I'm trying to think if I actually wrote this in the book. My favorite tool right now that I do with someone when they come into the office and I can see they're in a swirl or they're having a
Mm-hmm.
moment, I say, please close your eyes, take feet firmly on the floor, take a couple deep breaths. When I say open your eyes, I'm going to ask you a question. Open your eyes. What is the first thing you see? A plant. What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you hear? People talking. That gets them very present, and it stops the swirl. But you have to close your eyes so you can try to like breathe and like feel your feet on the ground. Um, we, as a species, just tend to thrive off of anxiety, thinking that that's really going to get us to greatness. And in fact, when our anxiety rises and our cortisol levels rise, we're not performing at our top. We may think we are because there's so much adrenaline, but you're so disconnected from yourself. And again, I say this because I went down these paths. This is not like you. It's like this this stuff isn't easy. It's common sense. And there are ways that don't cost you a fortune to get out of some of this mess. And that's what I want to do, not only for the workplace, but for life. I'm using work as my playground because that's where I am all day. But it's really be yourself.
Claude, you said a lot of very profound things, but there's just one line I absolutely loved. And you said, when you write about belonging, you said it's not about fitting in, it's about claiming your space, standing in your truth, even when it's hard. And you even use Yoda as an example. You remind us that real belonging comes from knowing our inner nature, not chasing external validation. So, how can leaders help people drop these you don't fit in type voices and give themselves permission to belong as they are?
The first thing is leaders have to do this too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
That's the first thing. Let's get real. You can't just preach. What I'm calling for is for leaders to do all this too. This isn't just when the book starts with you, right? Yourself. That's just not for the new kid on the block. That's for leadership too. Like you also need to know where you start and stop. This is my space and then that's your space, that kind of stuff. So the first thing is like, I need a leader to be present with this stuff too and recognize that they don't have all the answers either, that they are doing the best they can in this thing called life and work and all of that. And then I think if you have that leader that can meet you without judgment, that's the big thing because we love to judge people. Then I think a leader can really guide you or help you find your way through this maze of like, well, what do I like doing? Well, what do I have to do that I can't stand doing, but I still have to do it for my job? Just like finding things out. What would you do if you didn't have to work at all? Oh, you'd work in an orphanage. That's telling. That's interesting. Okay, why would you work in an orphanage? Because you don't like to see people that have no roots. Okay, that's telling. Like you're getting to help put, I use a whiteboard a lot. You're getting to kind of like put their map up on a whiteboard so they can see kind of their magnificence too. So, but you have to be, as a leader, you have to take your ego out of the car. It goes way back there. It's like in the trunk, because you are there to serve them. You are there to help them find roots to themselves, roots to this place where they work and get paid every day.
You lay out the 7 rules of team citizenship and talk about being humble, brave, being a celebrator who honors others. Which of those rules do you think has the biggest impact on shaping culture, and how can leaders model this in a way that it's going to stick?
I would say humility is the biggest thing. Even though it's number 2 on there, they're all number ones. But humility, which is what I was just talking about, knowing that you don't know everything either, right?
Check the ego at the door.
Check the ego. No one needs to see it. So what? Really? So you're great. But like, let's move out of how great you are. We already know that. That's why you're here. So let's take some action here. One of the things I say, and I said very early on when D-Rock followed me around for an entire day.
And this video on you.
Yeah. This is when Gary was doing the Daily V.
Yeah, right.
Way back when. And out of the blue, someone asked me what I think leaders need to do. And it just rolled off my tongue, and I still believe it. People need people. People need people that listen and then do something. And as a leader, I take that very seriously. When you come to me, you are obviously coming to me so I can listen and I can hear you and I can validate or help reframe the situation. But you're most likely coming to me because you want me to do something. Connect you with someone, talk to your manager, help coach you, give you a hug. I mean, you most likely want some motion here because we all want to feel momentum. Me too.
Yeah.
So when we talk about how can leaders help others, and when I say humility, we all had job number 1. Every single one of us in the workforce had our first day of work. Could have been 50 years ago, could have been 10 years ago, but we all started on day 1 somewhere as that like, oh, okay, I'm here. Like the day I walked in, I was like, okay, wow, okay. About 20, average age about 23. Cool. All right. This is going to be fun.
Claude, I love this line when you're talking about trust. You said, true trust isn't built on perfection. It's built on the willingness to be seen in our imperfections. Why do you think imperfection is such a powerful leadership tool when trying to build trust?
Because people look to leaders as though they're perfect.
Right.
As though they have all the answers, everything in the world they can answer. And yes, we might be subject matter experts on certain things, but by no means do we know everything. We are imperfectly perfect. And what I'm saying in that sentence is get present. Leaders aren't no one is perfect. But if you are a leader, I would like you to be present with me. That is your responsibility. You are getting paid to see me, to be me, be with me, and to help grow and develop me.
You write about how building trust means lowering our defenses, leaning into the discomfort, and responding with compassion instead of criticism, even when things get hard. And I love how you use Ted Lasso as an example of creating a culture where imperfect people can still be part of something big.
Yeah.
For leaders who want to build this same type of trust on their team, the culture, what's a practical step that they can start taking today?
We've talked about a lot of them, but I mean, there's a reason that Ted Lasso had Believe up there.
Believe, yeah.
And there's a reason, because he believed in this team of misfits, and of underdogs, and he wanted them to believe in it. So sometimes you have to see something in order to take it in, and it becomes like actionable or belief system. So what I would say is the first thing is, or there's many things, but the humility and the leaning in, and the generosity of spirit, of your heart. But you have to have a lot of belief, and that could be blind faith.
Hmm.
You could call it optimism, but you have to believe. And if you don't at first, then try to figure out why, but what is something you can get behind.
You shared how growing up you were a ball of emotions. I could totally relate to this. I was a very emotional child. Sometimes I didn't know how to, like, what's happening to me right now. So I relate to this. Like, but as you grew into an adult, I'm sure you realized that emotions, when harnessed the right way and put towards something intentional, it's a superpower. I believe that, at least. When did you realize that this is a superpower of yours?
I realized that in my 20s.
Yeah,
After I left
I'd probably
school.
say the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I realized that after, I would say, a lot of hard knocks, and I really dove into like a lot of energy work in San Francisco. And I realized that my emotions were my superpower. My ability to feel, and to feel others, or to rely on my intuition, is a superpower, as long as I don't mix it
Right.
with judgment and some bias here and there. If I keep it pure, then, you know, I'm good. Yeah.
Well, I've always felt like with being an emotional, it's so easy to connect with people and to show our imperfections and to relate. I think it's just so much easier than
Yeah.
those who don't have emotions.
It's so much easier, because then you just don't carry that backpack anymore.
Yeah.
This is who I am. And as my
You either love
daughter,
me or you don't.
yeah, my daughter says to me all the time, Mommy, you're so weird. And I'm like, I know, that's cool, right?
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah.
What is collective vulnerability and how can leaders model this behavior in a way that gives team members permission to do the same?
Well, collective vulnerability, I believe, is an agreement that you have on teams, or you have within your pod, that this is how we are going to show up. We are going to show up real. We are going to show up whether or not, I talk about the appreciation circle earlier in the book. What I didn't say is, I should say this, is I think it's fantastic when leaders get together and like share something that they're not great at. I really, really do. Because there's a lot that we learn about each other, and like, oh, that's why, if I shared with everyone like I'm dyslexic, they'd be like, oh, no wonder you keep on saying you need to see something rather than me.
Mm,
Right. So now I just cut to the chase, and I'm like, hey, I'm really visual. Can you show me what you're talking about? But if we can do that on it, let's just talk about on a team, it just lowers the bar. You don't have to like feel like, well, I don't climb Mount Everest every day, so maybe I stink. It's like, no, we're not talking about Mount Everest. We're talking about, getting up and not pressing snooze 12 times. We're talking about real basic things. And so it brings everyone down to a very similar playing field. Obviously, people have their own lived experience and their own emotional language. So people are, the way I express empathy and the way you express empathy is probably very similar, but it's not identical. Right. So that's what I mean. So your vulnerability is going to look different than my vulnerability. But if we have an agreement that this is how we are going to show up, that's what gets to the emotional efficiency also. Like, okay, so it's a collective decision almost, that I just think creates trust, and it creates connection, and
yeah.
obviously speed. It just takes a lot of the sting out of things.
Mm-hmm. Claude, you wrote about how true heart-centered leadership is rooted in authenticity, kindness, clarity, and action. Which of those four do you find most challenging to practice consistently as a leader?
Wow, it's a really good question. Um, Probably clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I know that I'm a person that speaks in probably a lot of metaphors, and I story tell as I speak.
Yeah.
And for sure, there are people that are just like, get to the point.
Point.
Come on now, get to the point. Even when sometimes when I speak with Gary, I can tell he's like, come on, land it, land the plane. And that's something I have to just constantly be aware of. So, for example, if I'm texting him something, and we do a lot of our communication via text, I will say in the first part of the text, the punchline is X, Y, and Z. Then I'll write it, because here's a guy that really just needs to know this is the decision I need you to make. Here's the context.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to learn that. I guess the kids say TLDR or whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it's literally like I just need to be able to land the plane quicker.
I love that you have self-awareness around that, because I think you can look at any four of those things and say, well, I'm pretty good at all of them, right? But you've recognized that this is an area that you can work on.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why it took me so long to write this book, because it was just on and on and on in my head. And finally, I was like, I needed to work with a book strategist to help me, ground myself in what am I talking about? What are the themes I'm talking about? Otherwise, I just, you'd fall asleep.
Towards the end of the book, you shared how Gary Vee shifted his thinking from leadership as all about having the answers to realizing it's more about humility and vulnerability. For you as a leader, what's the biggest mindset shift that you personally made as a leader?
Another great question. Wow. I mean, this happened on Outward Bound, so this is a long time ago. But I went on a wilderness leadership program, so I went on a program to become a leader. I would say the biggest shift. That's a really good question. The biggest shift I had is understanding that that we tell ourselves lies, that I tell myself lies over and over and over again. And if I'm going to help anyone else, I need to get very clear about the lie that I'm telling myself and try to dismantle that. That's what I would say, because that's not fair if I'm looking through these glasses, but these glasses are really telling me a lot of self-doubt. And then I'm like, Brandon, you're blah, 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 da, 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 da. When I was my first week of college, which I ended up dropping out of, but my first week of college, where I'm walking down the street with my roommate, and she says, so what are you going to study? And I said, I'm going to study psychology. I want to be a psychotherapist. This is a week into her knowing me. She's taller than me. And she looks at me and she goes, you can't help anyone until you help yourself.
Ooh, like, that's deep.
Snap. Whoa.
Yeah.
And I was like, eh. And then I went on the Outward Bound, which then woke me up to the idea of the voices in your head, and that we all have them.
At the end of the book, you share about how I think you were giving a talk at a conference, and somebody came up to you afterwards, and they had this realization that their gentleness isn't a weakness; it's a superpower of theirs. So, as leaders, how do we help others uncover and embrace those hidden superpowers that might live within us?
Well, these are superpowers that most of us learn as children. We learn about kindness and compassion, and we learn about like sharing our toys, and we learn these things, and then somehow we go into school and it's all cognitive, it's all learning up here and not learning in our souls and ourself. And so you have to return to that. There's this book by Marianne Williamson, one of my favorite books, easy reads, Return to Love. You have to return to like who, I don't want to say who you were as a kid, but like, this stuff. For the most part, you were taught how to be kind. If you were in a classroom situation, someone taught you how to share. And we need to remember that. We need to remember that our job as leaders is to leave a map. It's not to leave a mess. And it's a big, big difference between a mess or drop me the breadcrumbs so I can get there myself, right? So the emotional intelligence qualities and traits that I do think are superpowers, and I talk quite a bit about at work, I think this is part of your ROI. This is why people are going to stay at your company. This is why you're going to feel good about yourself. This is why you're going to attract word of mouth people that come in. You won't have to pay for a recruiter. This is why you're going to be like, whoa, I had a great idea today, and you're going to share and collaborate and have innovation, and you're going to save money. There is a real ROI here to bringing humanity into the workplace. And you have people that enjoy being there. They enjoy learning. They enjoy the grunt work too. Like, that's what we want. People that are willing to really roll up their sleeves and be like, I'm here, I'm present. What do you need? And I'm not perfect.
It's well said, Claude. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. We covered a lot. Your book has so many great ideas, exercises, just there's so much more in there. So I hope people go get the book. It's called Be Yourself at Work, The Groundbreaking Power of Showing Up, Standing Out, and Leading from the Heart. Claude, where can people connect with you, learn more about your work? You're doing so many amazing things at VaynerX.
This has been awesome, by the way. I love it. And I love your smile. Like that's when you're like connecting with someone, when you see it, you can see it. ClaudeSilver.com is my website. I think the new one's about to come up this week. And then I'm on LinkedIn, and you can go check out the book at beyourselfbook.com. Anyway, write me. Love to hear from you. And thank you so much for giving me the time and attention.
My guest today has been Claude Silver, author of Be Yourself at Work and Chief Heart Officer at VaynerX. Claude, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.